Welcome to Your College Bound Kid,
a podcast for parents, college counselors, students, and anyone who wants a deep dive into the world of college admissions.
I'm Mark Doepker, and I'm the founder and producer. Our mission is to make college knowledge available to all. We care deeply about your kid. We believe college is a match to be made and not a prize to be won. We believe in being genuine and transparent. We are committed to covering a variety of topics, including the tough subjects. Thanks to your generosity, we're committed to providing a minimum of 10 hours of fresh, commercial-free content every month, with episodes every Monday and Thursday. We have a variety of co-hosts because we believe and value diverse perspectives. You're our listening family, and we get great joy every time we meet with you, as we do our best to give you tools so your students can soar and reach their limitless potential. Good afternoon, friends. I'm in a great mood. It is Counselor Connect Night. That's right, fourth Sunday, 9 times a year. We don't meet during May because of Memorial Day or November or December because of Thanksgiving and Christmas, but 9 times a year we are meeting as a group of college counselors. We got 4 types of college counselors in there. We've got CBO counselors, we've got public school counselors, we've got independent school counselors, and we've got IECs, and we've got a special speaker tonight, Adam Ingersoll, the co-founder of Compass Prep, one of the leading test prep companies in the country, and they produce some outstanding data, and so I'm pretty excited about that. And then back-to-back speakers next month, we've got the leadership team from Nerd Apply, who you asked us if we could have, and they're showing how you can use real admissions decisions to help you in list building. So if you're a college counselor out there, we are still accepting applications, but we are particularly looking for community-based organization counselors, public school counselors, or independent school counselors, or we will take some IECs, but you have to have significant experience. We want to make sure that our group has a full range of counselors. We have quite a few IECs who are newer to the profession. We are taking some IECs with significant experience. Or we're like admissions, right? If you're bringing something that we don't have in the group, then you're more valuable in terms of, that's just how admissions works, right? You want what you don't have. So I've got a real straightforward episode for you today. I thought I was going to have a wrinkle for you, which I'll share with you in a second. But basically, there's 3 things you're going to hear today. You're going to hear the final part of Micki Meyer talking about the importance of the first 6 weeks of college, the freshman year, the first 6 weeks of the freshman year. So you hear the final part of that. You'll hear the 7 of 11 entries that I'm doing on the Chronicle article that, you know, I continue to mess this article up every single time I try to say the name, about the budget crunch that colleges are experiencing. And then you will also hear the final part of Lisa and Lynda breaking down U Chicago. So that's the whole episode. Now, I'll tell you what the wrinkle was. It's a bit of a tease. But I'm going to tell you what the wrinkle was. So probably 5 or 6 times in these last 9 years, I have addressed the topic of how can you know if a college is financially stable. And I've done it in different ways. I've sent you lots of websites about the aggregators out there that score this kind of thing. I've even verbally gone through some processes that you can use. And I was thinking about, I'm kind of putting this article here about higher ed's budget crunch, but I really should do the deepest dive I've ever done on showing people how you can know if the schools that you are considering are really struggling financially. Because we've said on many occasions that when a school is struggling financially, they really feel they can't afford for that information to get out, or they're going to struggle even more. So they keep it really close to the vest. And then next thing you know, you're hearing talks about closing and merging and downsizing and everything. So I'm not doing it now, but the only reason I'm not doing it is I realize it's so much better for me to do this with a visual medium. So I promise you I'm going to do this on YouTube. And when I do it on YouTube, then you can actually see pictures of the sources that I'm using. And that's just going to make it so much easier for you to do it yourself, because a picture truly is worth 1,000 words. So you won't have to wait long, as YouTube's coming. I'm not going to promise I'm going to have this out the very first video. In fact, I know I won't. But you'll definitely have it in 2026. That's for darn sure. Without any further ado, though, let's transition to the final part of Micki Meyer letting us know what you need to do in the first 6 weeks of the freshman year to have a successful transition. By the way, this interview has been up on our website for a long time. I encourage you to share it with anyone you know who's got a freshman starting in college.
And now this week's interview with a special guest.
Friends, we've reached the final part of my interview with Micki Meyer, the Assistant VP for Student Affairs at Rollins College and a 20-year veteran at Rollins who's in her 5th different college. And we're talking about the importance of the first 6 weeks of college. And in the final part, Micki gives us her 6C framework for helping young people transition to college. I share what I personally felt helped me transition to college. It also helped my brother and sister transition to college. And I asked Micki for her thoughts on a few things that can help a student transition to college. Micki talks about roommate conflicts. And she talks about when things can be worked through with a roommate and when you need to reach out to help because it's irreconcilable. And Micki talks about when a student should stay at a college or when it's time to leave the institution. And then Micki goes on the hot seat and she drops some real pearls of wisdom for us. Listen and enjoy.
Part of care might also be having a sense of responsibility and ownership in the home. So my son does his laundry, and he's done it since he's been in 6th grade. Now, does he do it perfectly? No. Does he finish the cycle? Not always. But we're starting to build this idea of him taking responsibility for things in his own life. Now, we're talking college, and I'm talking life skills here, but understand that life skills help prepare students for the smooth transition to college. What doesn't always work is when students are graduating from high school and parents say, okay, in the drive up to college, we're going to have all these conversations and we're going to start, making meaning and building values. I can give you like this 6C framework that I use a lot when we think about a college-ready mindset. The 6 things to prepare for early, but also know are the great differentiators in college, and we've talked about some of them today. The first C is curriculum. We know that a college curriculum is more, it's rigorous, it's different. You're moving students from knowledge regurgitation to knowledge creation. For some students, that's going to be a very, very different way of doing and being. So thinking about, is there things in your home where you can start for students, getting them to think about the drivers of information and not just the absorbers of information. So thinking about curriculum, very different. The second C we talked about is care for self and care for others. As parents, what are you doing to create the environments that your students can start to understand care for self, learning their cues of their body, eating thoughtfully, building an exercise routine, starting to understand who they are, but also their relationship with the other people around them, that they're not alone in isolation, but they're responsible for others and for the care of other people. The third is communication. This is something that's definitely changed over the last 20 years. Our communication styles have changed. There's a lot of communication that's not being taught at home and in high school, where students just aren't ready to engage it. In college, for instance, again, I'm saying students broadly, picking up the phone and calling and making an appointment. So many students haven't done that before they get to college. Scheduling a doctor's appointment, writing an email, writing a thank you letter, looking a person in the eye and having a conversation. What are those human communication skills that you think that maybe school is teaching or friends are teaching that you can start to plant seeds now as they're getting ready for college? Because those are going to be really important. In the classroom, where they're building relationship with peers, understanding and working with faculty, applying for internships and jobs, they've got to get those somewhere, and they've been lost somewhere in the shuffle as in the last couple of generations. And then 3 other C's, we've talked about these today too. Community, this sense of community, this sense of belonging, getting your children and your family outside of a bubble and understanding the unique, rich, diverse world around them and the opportunities for them to learn, develop, and grow. understanding what's happening in the world around world issues and challenges. What's the relationship between those things as it relates to your child and your students and your family? Talking about family values, helping your students understand that, one, they can cultivate community, and helping them understand how to navigate community and be parts of communities. And then finally, the last two, which is what brings me to my work, which gets me super jazzed up and excited, is curiosity and calling and career. So curiosity, this idea of helping students understand that a college-going mindset is about coming to things with this idea of wonder and curiosity, not things being all-knowing, but really critical thinking, analyzing, understanding the way the world works, but also understanding why people are different and how they approach things differently. And then finally, career, which will take a while, or calling, is, what is it that I want to do in adding value to this world with my education? How can I make a difference? What do I see myself doing? And that may evolve over time, but to start to at least have those conversations about life after college. So those are the 6 C's that stick them on the refrigerator and just touch them once in a while as you think about how to engage thoughtfully in the college-going mindset.
Micki, college was really easy for me to transition to. And my brother and my sister both say the same thing. And I think the reason why is because from age 7 to 17, we spent a minimum of 2 weeks in a summer, like residential summer camp. It would be either 2 or 4 weeks. And I realized that's not something that everybody can do. But you just got so used to transitioning into brand new environments in a residential setting with new people that I really think that for me and my brother and sister, I think that was really invaluable. The other thing that it's like music in my ears when I'm working with a parent and they really make it clear that I want my student driving this college process. Like, I'm going to be there to support them, but this is their journey, because they're already like empowering their student by having them practice self-advocacy. And I tell them, like, that's as important a skill as you can have, self-advocacy. Because, when you get into a college environment, if you're feeling down in the doldrums, will you seek out counseling? If you're struggling academically, will you go to the Academic Success Center? And we could go on and on, or will you just stay in your room? And so, or will you seek out the professor, or will you not? So those are a couple things that I found. I realized the residential camp, nowadays they're so expensive. They weren't as expensive back in the day. So I realized it's not something everybody can do, but I know in my own life and my brother and sisters, we found that to be invaluable. I don't know if you have any thoughts on either the self-advocacy or the sort of residential camps, if you're able to do it.
I think they're incredible. I think that they're incredible. The residential camps, or, what? I think babysitting is huge. I know that might sound pretty elementary, but what's really great about babysitting is you're giving your student the opportunity to care for something, going back to care for something bigger than themselves, where they're in the driver's seat, caring for an animal. These are some basic things if you can't do a residential summer camp. But yeah, think about that, Mark. When you were away, it was on you. No one was, maybe they're saying lights out or not, but you had to, bathe yourself, wash yourself, manage your time, manage interpersonal conflicts with peers. You were sharing rooms. It checks every box of building resilience.
Get up and be at breakfast at 7:15, and even like the lights out stuff. Like, you're still getting used to not just having it your way all the time and have to live in a community with some rules.
That's right. I think it's exceptional and it's great. And even if it's even for a couple of nights to go away, my son goes to a 5-day sleepaway camp, and he says it's the best thing he's ever done. But for some students, that really puts them in their panic zone. As a little girl, that would have put me completely in my panic zone. But I did go to one. I finally had the courage to go on my junior year of high school. to a leadership camp, and it was for a week. And similarly, I cried the whole way there. I cried the whole way back. I told my mother, "You'll never understand what I went through. You can never relate to me again. You have no idea." And I remember my mother saying, "Yes, this is exactly what I want for my kiddo." So I totally agree. Anything you can do to put your child in a situation where they are responsible for something bigger than themselves builds resilience and strength and skills that they'll be able to take with them when they go to college.
Micki, I'm sure you've had this question a million times over. I don't get along with my roommate. I want a new roommate. And then there's times the advice is like work through it versus, well, maybe this is incompatibility at a whole different level and we need to maybe talk about something different. Do you have any thoughts of like when somebody should try to work through it versus try to seek out other options?
Yeah, I would say that's the question as old as time. In college and beyond, relationships, partnerships, roommates, spouses, all that stuff.
Or even staying at the college, right? It's a rocky first semester. Do I bolt or do I try some new things and see, maybe give it another year?
Yeah. And I wish I had the absolute answer, but what I can say is that it's a process. And it's really important when these things happen to take a pause and to start analyze what some of the issues and challenges could be. It's like you're creating this space for problem solving, which is so exciting. With the roommate situation, the first thing I would do is help, if I'm a parent on the side, I'd kind of help understand, well, what are some of the challenges? They're generally 90% of the time because of incompatibility around behaviors. Messiness, cleanliness, staying up late, not roommates, friends coming over overnight, all of those things. And I guess to me, I believe there can be a way through a lot of this as it relates to shared goals, values, finding common ground, creating environments around decency and respecting other people. Some of the stuff to be very weary of, the suffering stuff, is if it has to do with anything that would be considered illegal activity that needs to be communicated. If there's anything where students are being, say, there's non-consensual engagement happening,
Mm-hmm.
video, photography, those things have to be engaged. Even if there's any crime around theft, those are some of the things that could potentially be non-negotiables. And it's really, really important to ask for help. But the other stuff, sometimes it's just going to take a little bit of time and space and coming together before you're bolting really quickly. If you bolt out of every uncomfortable situation, we know you're never really going to learn. My son is an only child, and he just said, he's like, "Well, I'm never going to have a roommate, even in college." I go, "Yes, you are." And he goes, "Well, Mom, why? I'm an only child." I said, "Well, you may have a spouse or a partner one day. You might have roommates
Right.
one day. How are you going to learn those things if you're staying on your own?" Now, I think there are some students who obviously, because of additional needs, ADA, they may not be able to have. So I'm not talking about that. That's obviously a different category altogether. But pausing and engaging in the problem solving is going to be really important, really understanding what some of the issues could be, and all of these things. Same thing for wanting to leave the institution. That's why I teach the W curve. At any given time, 100% of students are going to say, "Hey, I don't think I fit in here and I want to start looking other places." That is a very, very normal. I'd be worried if you didn't have that. Maybe you're not examined, right? But some of the things that could be really, really big and serious are they just can't find a way through that, or their mental health or their physical health is becoming so impacted that it could be a life-threatening situation. That is when it's time to think about a change and a transition.
So we're about to wind down here talking about the first 6 weeks. I do want to ask you a few Rollins questions,
Sure.
and then every first time guest goes on what we call a hot seat in our lightning round. So is there anything that we haven't said that you want to share?
Well, I think we've answered a lot of the questions. The biggest thing is understanding that so much of this is going to be a trial and error. And it's almost like a Goldilocks where things might be uncomfortable or too challenging or too big or too small. But in the pursuit of understanding purpose and meaning, the just right will happen if you listen up and open up. If you're open in the experience, you'll find that sweet spot. Every student will. And for some of them, it might be right away and it might click. And for some, it might be a part of the journey of trial and error. So just to honor where you are, as a student, where your student is, and recognize that this is all part of learning and growth in college. And that's what makes it so unique. This is why college is so incredible. Beyond the academic pursuit, the life pursuit is the stuff that makes us more fully human.
Thank you for that. So I think you said that you've been at 5 different institutions altogether.
Let me count, make sure that right. 1, 2, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What makes Rollins special? How's Rollins different?
I fell in love with Rollins 20 years ago, and I didn't know I'd be here for 20 years, Mark. I'm kind of like someone who moves fast, but they kept giving me more things to do, and I kept saying okay because I love it. And what I believe makes Rollins really special, it's the mission, and it's the way in which students are educated here in such a relationship-rich, experiential way, where you can come into Rollins and you can be a big fish. And I came from all large state institutions before that. And I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I went to Rollins, because I see students coming in here who may be a little bit wobbly and unsure, and they leave as Fulbright scholars. They leave working in these major internships in Disney. And it is just the transformation that happens because of the way that students are educated around the relationship, but also around getting engaged through experiential education. It's just such a sweet spot, and it's transformational. And that's why I love this place so much.
And by the way, listeners, if Rollins is new, it's in Winter Park, Florida, which is absolutely beautiful, just outside Orlando, and it's absolutely gorgeous campus. What you don't know is that there was some recruitment that went on between your basketball coach and my youngest daughter,
wow.
Back in the day. So, yeah. So,
with Coach Wilkes.
Yeah.
He's a neighbor.
Yeah. How's that?
Well, I wish she came here. That would have been so cool. Where did she go?
She ended up going Big State U, University of Georgia.
Oh,
I did have another one.
I could understand maybe playing at Georgia over Rollins. I'll give you.
Well, she ended up not playing, but she just decided that she wanted the bigger school. I had one that did the smaller school. My oldest went to Davidson, smaller school.
Oh, well, that's such a great school, too. Yeah. And they're a part of the Associated Colleges of the South with Rollins. So if you know Davidson, I would say that we're cut from a pretty similar academic experience as Davidson.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we are going to transition to what I call the lightning round.
All right, I'm getting ready.
Get ready. All right. So first question. What's the best decision you made in high school?
Becoming student body president.
Whoa, you're impressive even back then.
I got a story around that too. Can I tell you really quick?
Yes, you can tell it.
The only reason I won was because I was nice to the underclassmen. Because I wasn't the most popular one in my class. Yeah. I ran against 4 other girls.
Yeah.
And I would say that I was kind of in the middle, bubbly, spirited, happy. But what everybody votes, and because I had built relationships with the juniors, sophomores, and first years and made them feel loved, they voted for me and I won.
What a great lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love everyone around you, not just the people in your circle or in your class.
Awesome. All right, let's flip it. What would you do differently if you were going back to high school? What you didn't,
Yeah. What I would have done differently is played a sport. I didn't think that I could make a team. I was too scared and I didn't want to push myself. And so I thought, well, that's not me. I'm going to do all these other things. I wish I would have explored a sport.
And what is it you feel a sport would have given you?
I think this idea of resilience and grit, pushing my body physically to the limits, dealing with frustration and disappointment, a lot of frustration and disappointment in a more productive and thoughtful way, which sometimes I think that in life we avoid the things that are going to be really hard and we focus on the things we're really good with. I'm athletic, but I wouldn't consider myself an athlete, but I think that I could have grown and stretched differently.
I am a huge, huge, huge believer in sports as a major instrument of growth,
Yes.
for all the reasons you said and many, many others as well.
So my husband was a Division I baseball player.
Oh, wow.
And my son is really big into sports, and I hear them talking and the experience that they have. I often feel a little bit left out or left behind because I am an advocate and a supporter now. But I thought, wow, that could have really helped shape me.
Well, I ran track at Michigan State. And
Oh my
so,
gosh.
yeah, it was like really, really impactful experience. So, yeah, I definitely am sold on that. Question, how do you relax?
Oh, I practice transcendental meditation. It's a
Oh,
2 time a day, 20-minute practice that you have to
and
learn.
how does it help you?
It helps me fully disconnect because you're saying a mantra in your head, and every time your brain wanders, you bring it back to the mantra, and you kind of go into a state of between sleep and wake, and it really brings me, kind of helps me relax and unplug.
All right, this is really lighthearted. What's the junk food you shouldn't eat, but sometimes you can't resist it?
Chocolate brownies, 100%. My husband made a pan this weekend, and I ate the whole pan yesterday. The whole pan.
He must make a good
They're
brownie.
really good. Like, that's
I
really
love it.
embarrassing, actually.
I love it. Well, you guys can't see Micki, but she looks very fit and in shape. So like you can
Thanks.
afford
I don't
it.
think you can see, actually. No, just kidding. Yeah, no, that was definitely eating the brownies was definitely it was a hard moment, but they were so good. I
We've
just
all
love
done
brownies.
it. We've all done it. If someone gave you $10,000 and they said you have to take a trip, where would you want to go?
I would go to Greece.
And have you been there?
No.
So it's on the bucket list.
Just the history, the philosophy, the water, the architecture just really speaks to something I'd love to do.
My youngest daughter, she works at the same one I was telling you about. She works at the Keenan Flagler Business School for UNC. And she gets to do an international trip with the business students every year.
Oh, gosh, that's amazing.
It's like incredible.
That's amazing.
So she did South Africa this last year. She did Thailand the year before. And she's like, I'm trying to decide between Japan or Portugal next year. Like, it's so rich. Travel
Life
is such an educator.
decisions. Oh, that sounds so amazing. I mean, Portugal
Yeah.
also sounds incredible. Oh, it's so cool.
What's a book that you think every parent should probably read? This one?
Ooh, well, I'm trying to think of what's on my nightstand. It's about perimenopause. I don't know if I want everyone to. I mean, I love Let Them. I know it's so cliche right now, but Mel Robbins, I mean, what I just think is so great about this idea of is, and it just goes back to college students, is let them learn, let them fail. And then think about let me think about how I can be a guide on the side. Let me think about how I can reimagine my role to support my student as they're going through college, which is really, really hard transition.
Micki, I feel you've probably already answered this in a lot of ways, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's your best advice for parents, students, college counselors? Those are our three audiences. What's your best advice?
I would say my best advice is it's going to be okay.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
I once had a manager that gave me that book. It's the name of a book, it's a Christmas gift.
Well, I love that.
It's such a good name. It's such a good name. Don't sweat the small stuff.
It's so good. So the one thing I will say is think about what is small stuff, because your small stuff might be different than my small stuff. And I think I was actually just having this conversation this morning with a college student. So something that might be a small stuff would be writing a thank you note after having an interview. Well, a lot of people don't sweat that now, but sometimes sweating some of that small stuff actually puts you in a very, very different position than the other people around you. So maybe it's thinking about what is your small stuff and don't sweat that. But what are some of the little things you can do to sweat that might be a great differentiator for how you engage the world as you think about the relationship with peers.
Yeah, you're right. Because for some person, maybe they have to give a speech and they're like completely petrified. But then for somebody else, they've been giving speeches
Right.
since they've done debate or whatever, and it's nothing to them.
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. This has been great, Micki. Thank you so much for giving us 80 minutes of your time. We're excited to introduce this to our listeners. And I really appreciate it. It's been really fun communicating with you and your team the last 2 months as we've been organizing this. And I'm going to get down. I'm looking at taking a trip. So there's some parents that I work with in the Winter Park right now. And one of them has said that she wants to throw a reception. I do these receptions. We do them all around the country, these listener receptions, for our podcast listeners.
Oh, that would be so.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about coming.
I would love that.
So if I do, we'll connect. And because obviously Winter Park is like right there. That's Rollins.
And we could eat chocolate brownies together.
There you go.
And we could talk about great growth together. And maybe since you're a runner, you can teach me some of your ways of being so I can be a better athlete. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, you could maybe come to the reception and meet some of our podcast listeners.
I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so
Mark.
much.
Good to see
Take
you.
Care.
Be well.
Take care. Friends, hopefully you enjoyed this interview with Micki Meyer. Hope you will tell others to go on to yourcosboundkid.com and listen to it, because it can help a lot of people who are about to go to college, and we don't want them to step in it. All right, friends, we are transitioning to the article that I struggled to say it right, so I'm going to say it slow. How bad is higher ed's budget crunch? See, I am capable of saying crunch instead of crisis. You just have to talk slower. And today we're looking at an article by Barrett Taylor, and he has entitled his article Trust Deficit. And Barrett Taylor is a professor of higher ed at the University of North Texas. Hey, I had a great visit to the University of North Texas on my Texas trip. All right, here we go. There's plenty of blame to go around. Some of it falls on governments. State funding is fickle. And at the federal level, the Higher Education Act has not been reauthorized since it expired in 2013. Some of the blame falls on the system itself. Vulnerable colleges have insufficient reserves and cannot easily expand their enrollment to fill budgetary holes. And some of the blame falls on institutions. Costs per student have steadily risen over time, and many institutions have expanded their scale and scope using tuition income, which contributes to rising costs. It is easy to see how these factors helped create the financial ills of today, but they also signal future crises. And all three of these financial stresses relate to a single underlying problem: failing public trust in higher ed. Public mistrust provides a rationale for governments to let higher education flounder. In turn, institutional desperation leads to confusing tuition pricing and aggressive enrollment management practices that further whittle away trust. And failing trust also leads to lower college-going rates, which exacerbates the financial plight. The spiral could make the sector's financial trouble much worse. But hope remains. Research I'm conducting with Brendan Cantwell suggests that most people still believe that higher education is good for individuals and the economy. They are much less confident that higher education is a distinctive social institution that contributes to communities and helps people live lives of purpose. Rather than trying to run colleges like businesses, academic leaders need to explain the benefits of shared governance and academic freedom to the public. They need to explain who and what higher education is for, and what operating conditions are necessary to deliver its benefits to society. I am not naive. Committed political partisans are beyond persuasion, and higher education is low on most voters' list of priorities. The road is uphill and steep, and yet if we do nothing, our financial problems will be here to stay until things get worse. Next up, we've got Tanya Garcia, and what is the name of her article? It's Only Going to Get Worse. Wow, what a segue. Yeah, that's her. And Tanya is the vice president at the Institute of College Access and Success. So, we're making it through these 11 articles. On Thursday's episode, you'll hear entry 8 of 11. Shout out to the Chronicle of Higher Ed. My opinion, the single best source if you want to stay current on what's going on in the world of higher education. All right, friends. And like I said, I know that I'm teasing out all this stuff because I'm reading all these articles, and I can sometimes just hear the panic in people's voice when they ask, I don't want my kid to go to a school that's financially floundering. How can I know? So I want to make sure I get that to you guys. And it's not going to be like a December 2026 thing either. But just an update. We have now recorded 20 videos for that YouTube channel. I got to get ahead because I'm on the road. I'm doing a crazy road trip from October 2nd to November 15th. And I do not want to be doing podcasts or YouTube videos from the road. I just kind of get comfortable in my studio. Got a little bit of a sound booth here and just, you just get comfort. Got a better mic, all that stuff. But I promise you that I'm going to do a deep breakdown on how you can know with visuals that I think is going to be incredibly helpful. So stay tuned for that. Without any further ado, let's transition to the final part of Lisa and Lynda breaking down the University of Chicago.
And now it's time for our College Spotlight of the Week.
Athletics, they definitely have them. It's a thing. And soccer is really good. Tennis, swimming, track and field.
Now, let me ask you this. Did Sam ever go to a sporting event and
Not
cheer on
a
the team?
single time.
All right. That's what I thought. Did she know when they were happening and where they were? Because I know we didn't. We had no idea.
Well, I mean, we tried to tell her, but I don't believe, no. I know that, and this is, her roommate first year was an athlete. I'm like, you should go cheer her on. No. But I know she's walked by the football field. I'm not even sure I'm going to call it a stadium. But no, not a single time. So let's talk about costs and financial aid because it's a super expensive school. Cost of attendance is north of $90,000. However, this is one of the schools that just recently announced free tuition if your income and traditional assets is under $250K, free tuition, free college under $125K. I think they are quite generous with financial aid. I think they've made a big commitment to under-resourced students. So this is a school that I would never say don't apply because you think you can't afford it. Run the net price calculator. One of the things they have on their website is 90% of U.S. households would qualify for free tuition. And I run into a lot of families. It's typically first-gen families who just assume they are not going to qualify for any financial aid because they don't qualify for free or reduced lunch at their high school. And the bars are different. And just because you make $251,000 doesn't mean all of a sudden you're paying full freight. And their financial aid packages are no loans. They are need blind for admissions, and they give more than $200 million a year to financial aid. They also have the Odyssey program for low income or first gen students that covers tuition plus additional funding for study abroad, internships. Here's a big one. They cover your health insurance. So I really like that. They also have merit scholarships. You're automatically considered for merit scholarships. You don't have to do anything extra. And it just depends. They do have some scholarships listed on their website. They have a scholarship for children of
first responders, police and firefighters for Chicago Public Schools. And there are more I know that they don't have listed. Outcomes, what do you get for all of that money? They just announced that 98% of their class of 2026 has received an offer of employment, will be attending grad school or other post-college opportunity. Current law and med school acceptance rate is 90%, and for MBA, it's 95%. Some of their top employers are who you would expect from an Ivy Plus school: Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, JP Morgan, Jane Street, Citadel, Palantir, the usual suspects. Okay, so what do they value?
There's just one catch. There's only one problem with this amazing school.
Yeah, you just got to get in. Right?
Yeah, if you do that, then you're in Lake Flynn. But yeah, that's the problem.
That is the problem. Their acceptance rate is ridiculous.
Low.
It's low. And the average GPA, and when we say low, I mean, depending if you're applying ED versus, the regular acceptance, RD acceptance rate is probably 2%. So it's not an easy school to get into. Their average weighted GPA is around 4.9. 58% of students had a GPA of 4 point and above. The median SAT 1510 to 1560, ACT 34 to 35. And this is a test optional school and was test optional before COVID. Yeah. So and we've seen students get in without test scores. So you don't have to submit test scores, but you better have some other really impressive stuff, because they do care about the character and personal qualities, your extracurriculars, your letters of recommendation. Demonstrated interest, they say they don't care about that.
They love their ED, though. That's the ultimate demonstrated interest.
I was just going to say, just like Mark says all the time, ED is the way to show your demonstrated interest. So think about that. And the other thing that they're really going to care about are those essays. And this is like the first line of defense. When somebody says they want to put UChicago on a list, I'm like, let's just go out and take a look at their essay prompts, and you let me know your first reaction, because I think that is a tell. And Lisa, do you remember what you wrote your essay about?
I do remember what I wrote my essay about. The prompt was, what kind of kitchen appliance are you? And I said I was a blender because I take ideas from everywhere and make them into delicious smoothies in a newly synthesized form. Now I would say I was an Instapot. Like, I can do it all. But they weren't invented back then.
I was going to say, right? That's it. No wonder you are welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, it was much easier to get welcomed with open arms back in the day, as we know. So.
Well, I don't think it was easy even back then. So I love their essay prompts, and their first one, their Why UChicago, and I'm just going to read this, is how does UChicago as you know it now satisfy your desire for a particular kind of learning community and future? Address with some specificity your own wishes and how they relate to UChicago. So I think this really just goes deeper than the typical, why do you want to study that major at our school prompt, because they want to know about what kind of learning you are excited about. And then they want specificity. So you really have to think. But that's the easy essay, because then they have the uncommon essay where they have questions like, what kind of kitchen appliance would you be?
But that's an easy question, though. I feel like those students who submit those, it's payback time for them. It's the ultimate haze. They are mean. They must sit around for hours and hours and hours coming up with the hardest questions that one could ever answer.
But do you know who comes up with these answers? I mean, this is the cruelty, the sublime cruelty of them. They're suggested by students.
That's what I'm saying. Those kids are doing it to the next gen.
They absolutely are. And these so listeners, I've taken some of my favorites. Now the nice thing is they come out with like 6 or 7 every year, but you can choose your own adventure and go back to essay prompts from previous years and find one that you like. So I have a couple that I really like. Susan Sontag, class of 51, wrote that silence remains inescapably a form of speech. Write about an issue or a situation when you remain silent and explain how silence may speak in ways that you did or did not intend.
That's an easy one to answer. That
Oh,
one. That one is easy. That's a real life example. Solve for X.
yes.
Answer that one for me.
But you better have a good story, right? You better have a good story. And here, cats have 9 lives. Pac-Man has 3 lives, and radioactive isotopes have half-lives. How many lives does something else have, and why? So my first gut instinct was to talk about how long cheesecake lasts in my house. But that maybe is a really common one. Probably why I would never be able to go to Chicago.
And I don't know cheesecake is that common, to be honest with you, but it is delicious. So
it is delicious. It is delicious. And then for simplicity, so where is Waldo really?
Right. How do you answer that? I mean,
how do you answer
that one? I mean, yes, you can. I could come up with a story. I could use my imagination, but even my geeky brain says nope, and it just walks away. Now I'm old and I'm not that motivated to apply right now. So maybe if I was trying to apply, I would come up with a good answer about where the heck Waldo has been hanging out and why. But that is a hard question to answer, So yeah, Susan Sontag, she did people a solid by giving them that one, I think.
So I think that what I like about these, I mean, like I would read the Where's Waldo. I don't want to write it, but I would read it happily.
Sure.
And I think that is, Chicago cares much more about how you think, not necessarily what you think, but how you are able to communicate. And if you don't read those type of essay prompts and start, getting excited to put pen to paper, you might move on.
And I'll tell you, kids, like they want to see that you are a life of the mind kind of person, that you like thinking about things that have no practical purpose whatsoever, like where's Waldo, and coming up with something, and that you enjoy that kind of thing, because trust me, you are going to be doing that during your 4 years there. So if you don't like that, then you should not go there, because you will not be happy.
You will not be happy. There's been a lot of articles out recently about how students aren't reading, which breaks my heart. And a lot of high schools and even colleges are having to not assign full books to students, but just, a few chapters, because students simply aren't reading. That's not going to happen at Chicago. If you take the Shakespeare class, you're probably going to be reading a Shakespearean play a week. It's a lot. So think about that as you get ready to do this. And I do want, because I want to talk more about who this school would be good for, but I don't want to miss out on this, because there have been some changes that folks may not be aware of. Chicago does have early decision 1, early decision 2. They have regular decision, and they also have summer session early notification, aka ED0, where there is some benefit if you have attended a summer program. I don't want to go into this deeply, because Mark and I had a great conversation about it back on episode 579, and you can hear all about that. So I want to make sure I didn't forget that. So to your point, who this school is good for: students who are excited about life of the mind, who are excited about the core curriculum, who do like coffee and caffeine in all of its forms.
And yes, yeah.
And I believe there's still 14 coffee shops on campus. So you've got a wide variety. This is a great school. I think if you are looking to get into undergrad research, they have it available. You don't have to wait until you're an upperclassman. You really can become involved in research right away. And also in the social sciences, not just, biology or chemistry or physics. There's a lot happening there. Students who want that urban environment, it is south side of Chicago, but you can see the skyline from many of the dorm buildings. It is an easy train ride to downtown Chicago. And that's something else we should talk about, Lisa, is internship opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things they do with that big endowment is they have a program called Metcalf Internships, where it's more than 4,000 internships reserved for UChicago students. And paid. And if it happens to be a not paid internship, you get a stipend, and that runs between $4,000 and $5,000. So those are awesome experiences, especially as first year students, when it can be really tough to get an internship. It's a great way to get some experience.
Now, can you do that more than one summer, or are you limited to one of those internships types per year?
No, I don't believe you are limited
That's
to that.
great.
Yeah. And they also, sometimes they have jobs that you could do on campus that are funded that way. So there are plenty of opportunities. Much of the research is paid. So there are opportunities for students to be able to afford their own coffee habit on campus. Students with financial need. So if you are looking to get significant financial need from a college, this is one that meets demonstrated financial need. You do have to fill out all of the forms, but I have found them to be generous. For students who are looking to go on to grad school, I think UChicago, and Lisa, you can speak to this firsthand, provides that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it not good for, Lisa?
Well, it is if you are not an ambitious student and maybe a little bit competitive, you might find your fellow classmates a bit annoying. Tryhards, if you will. And it's just, if you are like strictly, you just want to have like a professional, like I want to learn how to do X, and that's what I want to do, and I don't want to learn anything else, then you're not going to be happy there, because they're going to make you learn other things. And that might be a bad fit. If you are afraid of the city, I think you should still go, because I believe that every young person should live in a city for at least a year of their life, because it gives you the confidence. I know from my time there, like I've been able to handle myself anywhere in the world with that, the knowledge of how to conduct oneself in a slightly sketchy environment, and also how to recognize slightly sketchy environments and how to get out of slightly sketchy environments. All very, very important things that I think young people should know. Using public transportation, I think, is another really great thing. So I know a lot of people are scared of the city, of, especially of Chicago, but Chicago is really, there's many parts of it that are quite safe and quite lovely.
Yeah. And I hear this a lot from families, and, people look at me crazy when, say, my students in Chicago, has never felt unsafe at the school. They know it's an issue. I don't think you can go anywhere without seeing UChicago PD. So I think if you're seriously considering it, you need to visit, because Hyde Park is not the scary place that it sounds like. And things happen everywhere. One of the things they do is they have it used to be free Lyft, but then they went on that cost saving, and now it's a different service for students. So there's anywhere in Hyde Park, I forget what the radius is, students can just call up a free ride service and get to where they're going. So it is not as scary as people want it to believe.
I'm just laughing because we used to play a game in my dorm called, is that a gunshot or a car backfiring? We would sit around and be like, I'm just going to say that's a car backfiring.
It's always a car backfiring, even though cars don't backfire anymore.
Yeah, it was a plausible thing when I went.
It is always going to be a car backfiring. I promise you. That's what I tell myself anyway. And as far as, like students who want to enjoy everything, this is the day I describe to families. My student with friends went to the Argonne National Laboratory for a tour and got to see that. And then they headed to the Institute of Art for the latest Dali exhibit. So they had a full day of Chicago, and then they went back to their dorm for Murder, She Wrote episodes, and they had long conversation about what actually is happening in, Crabapple Cove? Why are so many people dying in that little town?
Yeah, you do not want to move there.
No. So, and there's a whole bunch of Gen Z people who are like, what are you even talking about?
You'll figure it out if you go to the University of Chicago.
You will figure it out. So you have to be excited about those kinds of things to truly enjoy and take advantage of everything at U Chicago.
And folks, get a really good coat and a really good set of boots. Get it warmer than you think it should be if you're not from a cold climate type of place.
Can I tell you though, Lisa, I said that same thing. And finally, this past winter, it was a traditional, awful Chicago because the first few were not that bad. And Sam thought I was crazy. But no, it is brutal. It is brutal, folks.
I have been snowed into my house for a week with 3 feet of snow outside. It does get wintry there.
It does. And probably why when you get the swag bag, after you get accepted, it includes a scarf.
Yeah, that's definitely a tell right there.
You're gonna need it. You're gonna need it. Lisa, is there anything we're forgetting about?
I'm sure. Just at my stage of life, when anyone asks me that, I'm going to always say yes, because I know there's something I'm forgetting about. But, I can't think of what it is right now, which is the other problem with answering that question.
Yeah, I can't either. But anyway, thank you so much for chatting about U Chicago, one of my favorite schools, even though I'm biased. And I think it's one of your favorite schools.
For the right person. Person.
Definitely. And it's true for all schools.
True, but some schools are a little more forgiving to the wrong person than others. So I just think you just, have to make sure that it is the right fit for you. But if it is, you can learn so much, have a great time, and get set up for life.
Definitely. Lisa, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Friends, I want to say something. Sometimes listeners send in questions and then we take them on the air and then, of course they call and they thank us afterward. And then sometimes they follow up and they actually add even some more context. And it's always nice kind of getting that. So I had a couple of those that came in this week. You may remember we spoke a couple times about a listener who talked about a student having like one activity and how that was going to impact things. Well, that listener followed up and said, yeah, you're right. You guys said my student probably didn't just have one activity. Yeah, they have more than one activity. So just a little clarification on that. But it's nice to hear from people afterward. Sometimes you provide more context. And it's just always nice to hear from our listeners. So we welcome you following up on any question from a listener that you send in. If you have not received your book, then I encourage you to request it. I believe we're current. I don't believe we're missing any books right now, but human error can occur. And by the way, I don't always play that message every single time about the books. It's I think for those who aren't necessarily getting a book, it could be a little boring to hear that message all the time. So just because you don't hear the message about the book, that doesn't mean you're not entitled to the book. If we play your comment or your question on the air, you are entitled to one of our free books. I checked in with Princeton Review. They committed to give 100 books to the first 100 listeners. And we still about 50 left with Princeton Review. And then, of course, we have our other generous authors who have agreed to give their books away. All right, friends, let's say a little bit about Thursday's episode. It's a pretty straightforward episode. We've got 2 questions. Hillary's going to take one. It has to do with someone who got a couple C's in dual enrollment classes, and how is that going to impact them from a college standpoint? And so Hillary will join me for that. Christina got a follow-up question about her first conversation she had with me about Parent Plus loans and all the changes that are happening with them. And so a listener from Texas called in and had a comment. And so Christina and I addressed that. And then you may remember I told you when I interviewed Jed Appleruth, we did a double interview. We went 3 hours, and I was going to play them all consecutively, but I thought, that's a lot of Jed Appleruth and that's a lot of test prep. So we split it up. The first one had to do with whether or not you're better off doing self-prep, group prep, hybrid, or one-on-one test prep in terms of prepping for the SAT. That one already ran, but the second interview has more to do with trends and changes going on with the SAT and the ACT, and a number of questions that listeners sent in. Jed answers directly, so you'll hear the start of that beginning on Thursday. And friends, if you've been listening to this podcast, I wrote a book in 2016. Kindle version came out in 2017 called 171 Answers to the Most Asked College Admissions Questions. And what I did in that book was I included 10 of my favorite admissions quotes. And they were my favorite back then, and they're some of my favorite today. And I like to read them sometimes because I figure if they inspire me, they may inspire you. And so I'm going to read a quote from someone I've had on the podcast 1 or 2 times. I can't remember if I had it once or twice. I'm starting to lose it here. Gary Clark. At the time, he was director of undergraduate admissions. He's been promoted since then. He's now, VP of enrollment over the undergraduate dean at UCLA. And this is what Gary said, and I think it's really important. I think we really need to listen to this and take this to heart. Here's what he said. Everything you do isn't about how it looks on a college application. High school is all about getting into the right college. Your undergraduate program is all about getting into the right MBA or JD or medical school. And then you wind up in your adulthood working, or you have a family, and you look back and you're like, I didn't really have fun. I didn't really get to be a kid. Gary Clark, UCLA. Another way that I like to put it is, this was actually put to me by a parent like 20 years ago when I was working in a boarding school. Parent said to me, with all this pressure to get into the right boarding school and get into the right college and get into the right grad school, the parent said to me, at what point do our kids ever get off the treadmill? That always stuck with me. So that's our message for today. See you on Thursday, friends. And that's our show. A big thank you to you, our listeners, for tuning in this week. If you find this podcast helpful, please follow us, and you will get every single episode as soon as they are released. If you want to support our podcast, you can click the share button and send it to your friends and acquaintances. You can say positive things about YCBK on social media. And you help us stay commercial-free and pay our staff by donating at yourcollegeboundkid.com and clicking the donate button. You can write a review for us on Apple or Spotify. If you have a question or suggestion, just go to speakpipe.com/YCBK and hit the orange button and speak, and we will do our best to get your question or your comment in your own voice on an upcoming episode. I'm the producer of the podcast, and I live in Metro Atlanta. We have a fantastic team that has over 200 years of admission and counseling experience. Shout out to our co-hosts, Susan Tree in Pennsylvania, Lisa Rouff in North Carolina, 2 admission officers from Colorado, Hillary Dickman from Colorado College, Kate Strickland from CU Boulder, Vince Garcia in California, Julia Esquivel in Massachusetts, Lynda Doepker in Missouri, Andy Strickler, the Chief Enrollment Officer at Connecticut College, Heath Einstein, the Chief Enrollment Officer at TCU in Fort Worth, Carter DeLauro, a co-director of college counseling in New York, and Christina Lopez, the former Dean of Admission at Barnard College, and our international college specialist, Kevin Newton from Dallas, Texas. Our stupendous sound engineer who makes everything happen is Nemanja Matvic from Serbia. Our reliable webmaster is John Rooney. Website updates are done by Joyce Ducker. Image editing by Vlad Honchar. And what would we do without our volunteers? Guy Pillsbury, Sony Patel, and Andy Bernstein are all helping us with podcast marketing. Carolyn Wood, Mark Doniger, and Carrie Roberts book interviews with thought leaders. Amanda Dugan, Colleen Sinoki, Nicole Resch, Trevor Smith, Ryan Stepler, and Lynn Labash send thank yous to interviewees. If you want a coaching session with me, just text me at 404-664-4340. If you want to reach someone else on our team, all of our bios with contact info can be found at yourcollegebounkid.com under the About YCBK tab. If you want to get our free monthly newsletter, YCBK Plus, it's also under the About YCBK tab. If you want to see our recommended books and websites, they are on our website under the Resources tab. While you're on our website, check out our hundreds of interviews in their entirety. Check out our college spotlights and our upcoming events and receptions. And you can now do searches for past content by using our new Explore and Topics tabs. We really encourage you to explore our past content. We have close to 1,000 hours. We think of you as our listening family, and we look forward to meeting with you every single Monday and every single Thursday.